A listomania. Think less but see it grow.
Hello everybody, it's the Gnome, and welcome to the final episode of 10 for 12. It is so amazing to actually take a look back specifically at this segment on my channel and see everything that I've accomplished since I decided to do this in 2013. And one of the few things that I will definitely take away from this little segment here on my channel is the fact that I think that this is definitely one of the places where I really got to be extremely creative. Whether it was from the presentation of the top 10 lists to the topics that I chose, but most importantly, this was also one of the most uplifting things that I did over the last couple of years, merely because of the fact that this was an opportunity for me to really connect with community members and have them contribute to all the various topics. But I think that where we are right now here in 2020 is a very interesting time because, as always, we have to finish off every single year of 10 for 12 with the events that shaped the previous year. And one of the few things that I'm sure that so many of you are asking is, Gnome, what exactly could you possibly be talking about, let alone 10 things, especially considering the fact that there was really one thing that we all pretty much had on our mind that also pretty much took over the news and we really didn't hear anything else. Well guys, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, there was actually a lot of interesting stuff that took place this year. And also, I wish I could have done this with somebody else here in the community, but I kind of felt that because of my docuseries that I did through 10 for 12, as well as the first video of 10 for 12 for the year, I kind of felt that it would be more appropriate for me to just finish this off solo. So yeah, there is definitely some news to discuss, and the most important thing about this segment, especially when it comes to recapping the year, is we really get to remember all of the events that happened that were pretty important. So I've got the list here, and I'm ready to go over them. We're going to start with number 10, and this one was actually an event that started at the end of 2019. And remember, when it comes to these events, I always like to give them my own little title, and I call this one The Fire from Down Under. Like I said, this actually began in the previous year, but while we were enduring the winter months, the Southern Hemisphere was, of course, dealing with the summer, and Australia was dealing with some of the worst brush fires it had ever seen in its natural history. This was something that we saw here in the United States on the news, and how so many of us were so nervous, not just for the people and the beautiful continent that Australia is, but one of the things that we definitely heard was how the people of Australia and all those that came to assist were doing their very best to preserve the wildlife, because they were talking about the populations of animals like the koalas and the kangaroos, and how this is the only place in the world where these creatures get to live in their own natural habitats. The fact that there was a possibility that we could have been living in a world where all of these species no longer existed was a terrible thing to think about. Look, one of my dreams one day is to go to Australia and just spend a day exploring the outback if I could, but knowing that there's this beauty in this continent and the fact that it almost got entirely destroyed, I'm just hoping that this is something that Australia will never have to endure again. But I'm a little bit nervous because of all the things that we have been seeing from California and this year Oregon and Washington on an annual basis. I'm really hoping that this is not going to become the standard for Australia. Number 9 is called If the BS Fits, You Must Acquit. Now, we all know what was pretty much taking over the news over here in the United States, let alone the world, but before that all happened, there was an impeachment trial going on in this country. Now, say what you will about Donald Trump, whether you liked him as the president, whether you despised him as the president. The thing that we need to understand is, regardless of how we felt, we all knew that an impeachment trial was coming. We didn't know when, we didn't know what the cause was going to be, but it happened. And I think we can all agree that we all knew exactly how it was going to end. And let's be honest, this guy's presidency was watched with a fine-tooth comb by so many different people. So the fact that there were so many who despised him, that wanted to try and find one way that they could find a gotcha moment and get him impeached so they could just replace him, was something that I think was inevitable, as well as the fact that he is now the third president to actually have been impeached. There would have been 4 if Richard Nixon didn't resign. People who want to forget about Donald Trump being the president of the United States, unfortunately, there were too many things that happened during his presidential term that are going to remind us that he was our president for a short time. Number 8 is what I like to call, we can never be royals. There was a very interesting thing also that happened right before the COVID-19 pandemic took over the news. And it was the fact that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle decided that they didn't want to be a part of the royal family and just picked themselves up and moved to Canada. Now, people in this world, there are some that eat, sleep, breathe royals. They love these people. I'm not a royals fanatic, but I know who they are. I mean, the Queen, Prince Harry, Prince William and Kate Middleton. I know all these people, and I know so many people who love them. Well, I don't know how many people love Prince Charles, but that's another story. Either way, the fact that these two were caught up in so much gossip and controversy just because they felt that this wasn't their place. It was also something that you really saw in the world of the royal family that was a rarity. So the fact that this happened and the fact that they're now living their lives, especially with their young son Archie, they're still in the gossip columns, but they're definitely doing something different when it comes to people of royalty and power. Number 7 is what I like to call Sorry Harvey. So in the last couple of years, one of the few things that we all knew about was #MeToo. And this year was the year that one of the culprits who abused his power and took advantage of women was given the justice that he deserved. And that, of course, was the media mogul Harvey Weinstein. Now, I just want to say that even before the Me Too movement, I knew a little bit about Harvey Weinstein and that he was this powerful man that people feared in Hollywood. And I mean, seriously, feared. And the fact that he was able to get away with everything was an absolutely horrible thing to see. But now that we were seeing so many people, particularly in Hollywood, being tried and convicted and serving time, the fact that this man officially now knows what it's like not to have power and to be living his life in prison. We listened to the victims, we empathized, and we knew that this was someone that didn't deserve what he had, and now he got what he truly deserved. Number 6, if I could say it in Korean, I would, but it is, and the Oscar goes to. Oscar ceremonies of 2020 were a historic event because of a little film from South Korea called Parasite. Now, if it wasn't for people buzzing about this movie, even right before the Oscars actually happened, I never would have known that this movie even existed. And I also was fortunate enough to actually see this film while it was still in theaters. And I gotta say, this movie deserved all of the Oscars that it received, including Best Picture. It was so original, so fresh. It was something that I think we as movie-going appreciators truly needed, because it also made a very bold statement in the world of movie making, and that is, you don't need to be from a major Hollywood studio to give us a truly quality film. And I think that the fact that Parasite winning Best Picture was a statement basically to Hollywood that you gotta put your political agendas aside and you gotta give the movie-going public what they really want. And that is good stories, relatable characters, interesting emotional roller coasters in every which way possible, and just a flat-out enjoyable time at the movie theaters. Parasite covered it all. This movie was so interesting in regards to its diversity of emotions. There were times where it was funny, there were times where it was dramatic, there was times where it was even scary. And it really is one of the greatest films that I have ever seen, and I am so glad that it won Best Picture. Number 5 is called Life is a Highway. It is very hard for me to actually not throw sports into this annual countdown, and this is all about NASCAR driver Ryan Newman. Ryan Newman was in one of the big races, and he ended up getting into one of the most devastating car accidents on the track that we had ever seen, and yet he picked himself up out of the wreckage and he walked away. It was a miracle. It was something that was on the news for a while, and the fact that people couldn't even believe that he managed to survive something that could have killed anybody. Just by luck of whatever's up there, he managed to live. And it doesn't matter whether you're a fan of basketball or golf or tennis or hockey or baseball or football or NASCAR. We love those athletes. We appreciate everything that they do for us in terms of entertainment, and the fact that they could get into situations like these and manage to live is a miracle, and we're glad that these athletes are with us regardless. Number 4 is what I like to call All I See Is Death. And believe it or not, it has nothing to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, because this would not be under the top 3. But one of the few things that unfortunately happened this year, regardless of whether it was from COVID or not, we lost a ton of iconic names in entertainment. I mean, we started off the year losing Kobe Bryant, and that was a devastating loss to the sports community. But as the year went on, we lost Diana Rigg, we lost Sean Connery, we lost Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Chadwick Boseman died on my own birthday, and that was one of the most devastating things that I ever saw. We lost guitar legend Eddie Van Halen. We lost Helen Reddy. So many famous faces, but I think the one that touched us all was the death that we really did not want to endure in 2020. We lost one of the most iconic names in popular culture, and that was the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek. We all knew that he was sick, and we all couldn't believe the fact that he was still coming to work doing what he loved. But we all knew, considering his condition and the kind of cancer that it was and the stage that it was in, we had a feeling that we were not going to hold on to him for much longer. And unfortunately, this was the year where we lost him. And along with all these other big names, it was just sad because we didn't need these kinds of things to happen. But unfortunately, they did, and all of these famous faces that gave us something to smile about, something to enjoy in life, whether it was watching Jeopardy or going to the latest movie. We will remember them for all the work that they did, and we are happy to have had them in our lives. Now we get into the top 3, and I think you guys will not be surprised with the 3 that I chose. Number 3 is called Hurricane Floyd. In the midst of the pandemic, we saw something that we didn't want to see. And that was a black man named George Floyd who was basically suffocated to death by a group of police officers, specifically one who did the deed, Derek Chauvin, in Minnesota. And this man died in front of the world. And this was a time where we were trying to prevent ourselves from catching COVID-19. But when something like this happens, you can't stay cooped up in your house. You have to get out there and you have to protest. People marched. People screamed. There were some people that screamed for certain things that some people like myself don't agree with, like defund the police. But one of the few things that we all can say is that when something like this happens in a pandemic, enough is enough. We knew that this is something that should not be happening now. This is something that people have been asking to have stopped for years. And by years, I mean decades. This is a terrible thing that there are still things like racism in this country, considering how much we've evolved as a species and how far we still have left to go. But the fact that we officially took this into serious consideration, the only thing that I'm hoping for is that this will be something that we are reminded of, and more importantly, that something this brutal doesn't happen again. Because if it does, then George Floyd died in vain, regardless of what you thought of him as a person, because there are a couple of things that we learned about him. Still, nobody deserves to die like that, no matter what the color of your skin is. Number 2 is called The Year the Earth Stood Still. Yes, the biggest news story of the year. Yet it's not number 1, because I kind of feel that there's one that just tops it a little bit. But this was the year unlike any other. This is the year that we're never going to forget, even though we all wish that we could. But in the early portion of this year, this mysterious virus that came from China, went to Europe, and then conquered the world, COVID-19 has changed us all. I don't know if it's for better or for worse, but the fact that we all had to live in a new normal was tiresome, it was aggravating. I still remember when I was officially told that I had to start working from home. I went to work on St. Patrick's Day, and it was the most haunting feeling to actually walk through Grand Central Station, one of the busiest transportation hubs in the world, one of the most recognizable in the world. To see it practically barren was the weirdest experience that I ever had. I even took a picture. But the fact that we have all been living in fear, in skepticism, we've been watching businesses crumble, we've been seeing kids going under so much stress and mental anguish, the fact that some of us have not even been able to see friends or even hug family and loved ones is just horrible. And I'm one of those people, but I've still managed to live this life and live this year in hope, especially considering the fact that the day that I'm recording this video is the day that the FDA is most likely going to approve the first vaccine. And that means in this weekend, it's going to start being given out to the people who need it most. So this could be the day of the turning point, everybody. I'm hoping that that's the case, because I don't know about you, I don't think I can live another year like this specifically. I want to get to see friends and family again. I want to go to the movies again. I just want to live my life. But the most important thing that I'm hoping that we will have gained from this event is the fact that we will have all learned something. Because I don't think we really can go entirely back to normal. I think that we have learned a couple of things that are not just negative. I think we've learned some very beneficial things too. For work environments, for school, for us understanding the true meaning of the sick day, and that we can still be productive. There's a lot of things that we can take away from this year, and I hope that we take away more positive than negative. And that leads me to the number one event, because I really want to end 2020, especially this video, considering it being my last, on a positive note. And that is Stand United. These last 4 years have been interesting, but this year the people have spoken and we have a new president. Now, I'm not going to get into my own political thoughts, but I did actually talk about my reaction to the election and who I voted for. I am not upset with the fact that Joe Biden is going to be the president, but I am very worried about certain things in my life that I have built, and I'm just hoping that they stay the same. But one of the few things that has made me very hopeful for the next 4 years is the speech that Joe Biden made the night that Pennsylvania declared him the winner of that state, basically giving him the votes in the Electoral College. He got up on that stage and he said, "The people who didn't vote for me are not your enemies. They are Americans, and we need to treat them like Americans." He really has shown me that he wants to heal this nation, because this nation has been divided long before Donald Trump became president. I want to make that perfectly clear. The fact that he wants everyone to appreciate each other, learn to live with each other, agree to disagree with each other, just be thankful that we live in a beautiful, free country. The fact that we have the ability to be whatever we want to be, whatever we choose to do, we can do it. And even though there is still a ton of work that needs to be done in order for everyone in this country to truly live the American dream, this, I think, is a good starting point. But the most important thing is we have to make sure that we accept that, and we have to work together. It is weird to say that just because of the fact that I have a political standpoint, that there are those who disagree with me that just don't want to talk to me anymore. It's so strange that that's the attitude about those people, and I truthfully believe that I am the bigger person for it, because I still choose to acknowledge them as human beings and as decent people. But the fact that there are people that still do not feel that way just shows me that Biden's got a lot of work to do. But I will appreciate all of his efforts. He is my new president, and I am just hoping that this country moves forward in a very positive way. And that's it, everybody. Those are my 10 events that shaped 2020. I really hope that you appreciated it. Please leave your comments in the box below. I'd love to know your thoughts and just have a conversation with you. And once again, I just want to say thank you to everybody who sat down once a month to listen to me do a top 10 list of any kind of topic. And the more important thank you to all of those people who took the time to participate with me. It was an absolute honor to work with you all, and I wish you all the very best of luck. But until then, I wish you all a happy and a safe new year, and a hope that 2021 will be one of the greatest years ever. I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.